alright. Tell them. Well, it's time for a change and we need it today. Nigel at the front and leading the way. This is the year that better must come with the AFC. We go win hands down. Real money start thief when the eyes start drill. Corruption, the inside the cup still. Guyana need change and a man with the will. The choice is clear, it's the man Nigel. Two power ship and enough blackout still. Cost of living so high and you can't pay bill. You feel them is for you, don't you swallow that pill. Vote a man for the people, the man Nigel. Put up your hand if you love Nigel. Better must come with the man Nigel. A man with the plan, a man with the skill, a man for the people, the man Nigel. Check this, too much thieving and plenty slackness. You talk for your rights and you get blacklist. You only act like the characters and actress. Choose a clean background and stay less practice. Put up your hand if you love Nigel, you. Better must come BFC and Nigel, you. Respected, educated, the man with the skill, the man for the people, the man Nigel. Nigel use a man with integrity. Nigel, look out for everybody. Nigel, not just friends and family. Better must come with the AFC.
Our good citizens of Region 5 and Region 6, those of us who are those of you who are joining us online, whether through YouTube or on the internet, social media, welcome to Alliance Undertake. And what a very special program that we have for you tonight. I want to start off by introducing our two guests who, well, they're not guests now, they're part of the family. They are part of the AFC family. They were officially inducted yesterday, and I want to introduce them to you. I don't know where she is on your screen, but Kerry Gravesandi has been actually a long-standing member of the Alliance for Change. Kerry is a businesswoman. She won the inaugural Women in Business Award in 2018, and then she went on to co-found the first Women Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Guyana. So we have a powerhouse of a woman here who's going to talk to us tonight about how we can develop economic opportunities for women, business opportunities for women, and also the general progress and development for women. And on her right, on my screen, is Mr. Jaipal Sharma. Now, Mr. Sharma needs very little introduction, if any at all. Mr. Sharma is a former minister in the Ministry of Finance. He was also a minister in the Ministry of Infrastructure. Before that, he worked at GCOM, and he has been a public servant for 18 years, 11 of which at a very senior level. So I want to say on behalf of the Alliance for Change, welcome to these family members as they join us. Welcome, Kerry. Welcome, Jaipal. Good. So we want to start with something that's very, very topical and very important, and actually affects all of us as citizens, which is the behavior of GCOM in the management and conduct of the elections. As you know, nomination day is less than 48 hours away. It's actually Monday morning at 10 o'clock, and it takes place at the Umanayana in Kingston, Georgetown. Just for those of you who don't know, what is supposed to happen then is all the political parties who are participating in the national elections, they're supposed to go and present their list of candidates and the nominators who have identified and supported those candidates. Now you may say, what could possibly go wrong? You just go and present your list of candidates. Well, unfortunately, it's not that easy. What happens is this. So as you know, on the ballot, you have the top, which is the top up, and then you have the region at the bottom. But also in these elections, there's the regional part where you vote for your representatives in the RDC, the Regional Democratic Council. So effectively, when you cast that ballot on September the 1st, you're actually casting a ballot in 3 separate categories. Now, why it's important to have a specific order for the submission of the list of candidates is this, because everybody's been saying, why are you keeping all this noise about the list and the submission? You may remember that back in 2020, parties camped out in front of Umanayana in the hope that they would be the first to submit their list of candidates. Now, that's not just a PR stunt to say, look, we were the first party to submit our list of candidates. It actually has a real consequence, And if I can briefly just explain that so everybody understands, because I don't think a lot of people really appreciate why it's important where you are on the list. As you know, I think there are 19 or 20 parties competing. The party that goes first and submits their list to the CEO of GCOM, all the names of the persons who nominated the candidates. So you have two lists. You have a list that has the names of the candidates, and you have a list that has the names of the persons who recommend those candidates. Those are called nominators. And for all the regions, you need about a maximum of 175. So every party would have their candidates and their nominators. So the first party that goes and submits their list of candidates and submits their list of nominators for each region, GCOM will automatically accept all of those candidates and all of the nominators, and unless there's some forgery or something going on. Now, if Michael Singh, who lives in Maibikuri, signs in the party that has submitted the list first, he is a nominator on that party's list. If the second party, the third or the fourth, or any of the other parties submit their list that have Michael Singh on it, not as a candidate, as a nominator, Michael Singh is removed from the list of nominators for them, and therefore they drop. If they submitted a list with 175, they drop to 174. And so, as you know, a lot of people sign up for multiple parties as nominators. They say, yes, you're a good party, we signed for you, and they don't tell you that they've signed it for somebody else. Or they sign for you and then somebody else comes afterwards and they also sign as a nominator for somebody else. So the second party that goes, if any of their nominators is on the first list, they get struck out. They get crossed out, and then the minimum number that you're required to have as a party, you drop below that number. So normally you have a backup list. But the problem with that is, as you can imagine, if you're party number 6 or you're party number 7 on the list, if any of the people in any of the parties before you, the 5 parties before you, is also on your list, you get struck off and you run a big risk that if people didn't tell you that they were nominators on other lists, then that number gets drops below the minimum requirement and you have to have a backup. Now, if you don't have enough backup candidates, GCOM has given you 24 hours, has given the political parties 24 hours to go and get replacements. So let's say in Region 9, you had 5 backup candidates, but by the time they get to your party, they strike off 10. If you have a backup of only 5, you have to go and find 5 more candidates in 24 hours. Now you may say, well, that's not a problem, but that's okay if you live in Georgetown, you live in regions 4, 5, 6, 2, maybe even 7, Bartica. You can get on a boat, get to Bartica and come back. What happens if you live in region 9 in Aishalton, or worse, in Guns? Even if you flew to Lesson tomorrow morning, let's say GCOM announced today that you have to find 5 candidates and you don't have the backup list and you're now going to find the replacement candidates, you have to fly to Lethen, assuming you go in the first flight, because there's no way you can drive and get in and get back out in 24 hours. So you fly to Lethen. It then takes you about 5 hours, with the roads as they are, probably longer, to get to Aishalton. And there's no way you can ever get to Guns unless you go in with the GDF, because Guns is at least 2 days by river and road away from Aishalton. So that 24-hour period, which is a contracted period, it used to be, I understand, 5 or 7 days before, puts those parties at a disadvantage. So that's why there was the rush before. The custom was people camped out before in front of GCOM at Umanayana so they can get the name in first. No, GCOM has not changed that list. That was the practice. They have not published it. We have changed the system. They haven't published, for example, that you can send us your list by email. It has to come in by a particular time so you can check the time. They've said nothing. So on the 1st of July, the Alliance for Change wrote to GCOM to say, look, please tell us what the procedure is for receiving the lists of candidates from the political parties because we anticipate that there is likely to be problems. We wrote to them from the first. After we wrote to them, the PNC, the APNU, had their launch, and the day after they finished the launch, on the Monday, they set up camp. They were the first to be there. Tuesday, just after the APNU set up camp, we, the Alliance for Change, set up camp. When APNU set up camp, they went live on Facebook and everybody saw what happened. And similarly, at 5:30 on Tuesday, we did the same thing. And I video recorded who was outside of Umanayana and gave a commentary saying, look, we're the second, we've come here at 5:30. This is who is here. APNU is the only person there. We went to the security guard at the Umanayana and said, we want to record our presence and time when we arrive. The lady security officer said she couldn't receive it and said, come next morning when her supervisor is going to be there, the supervisor will take it. He said, fine, no problem. The next morning, the supervisor didn't come at 8. She probably came at 10 or thereabouts. And by that time, ALP, which is Simona Brooms' party, they came, and then they were followed by Forward Guyana, which is the party of Amanza Desir. And we were out there. A security officer from GCOM came to the location right there at Umanayana and said, okay, I want to take the names of the parties who are here. And that security officer, Mr. Stewart, wrote down the names in the following order. Number 1, APNU. Number 2, AFC. Number 3, ALP. Number 4, FGM, Forward Guyana Movement. And he said, this is the order in which I am recording it. And he showed it to the representatives of the parties who were present there. This is GCOM's officer. This is not the security guard for GCOM. GCOM sent an officer, and you may say, how do we know? He had a badge that said GCOM, and he came there. So we assumed that that was the case, and we were going to continue to camp out. I then met with the police to find out about the security arrangements and the procession arrangements about what's going to take place on Monday, nomination day. And I learned that APNU is coming up Main Street, the PPP is coming up Young Street, and all the other parties, all the other 16 or 17 parties are all going to come down through the Seawall Road. And I said, this is crazy. How are you going to monitor who's going where? And that's a recipe for trouble. I inquired whether GCOM had issued any instructions about when they're going to go and take the information about who's first in the list, second in the list, etc. No information was available. So we had a press conference yesterday, and I said this is a recipe for disaster. Because if you have the PNC next to the PPP, with all the crossovers that are going on, there's going to be tension. And if GCOM hasn't said, oh, it's the first to come through the gate, or it's the first to do X, Y, and Z, we have problems. So we learned that the police are going to put up barricades at 6 o'clock on Sunday at those 3 locations, Main Street, Young Street, and the Seawall. And we learned that the GCOM are supposed to come there at midnight on nomination on Sunday night. And we don't know what GCOM is going to do when they come at midnight on Sunday night. How are they going to take who's first in line if everybody is behind the barricades and there are 3 separate locations? So we said in the press conference, GCOM, you have to clear that up. Now, sometime around Thursday, the PPP, Mr. Kwame McCoy and Minister Rodriguez, I believe, showed a picture on social media of several of them in red shirts standing up in the entrance of Umanayana. No image of APNU or any other party being present. And they said we were the second to be there. So it is as if you take a selfie, or they took a selfie of themselves in front of Umanayana and said, oh, we were the second. But we didn't stay because GCOM didn't have any presence there. So they left. So the 4 parties, other than the PPP, have been there. Last night, we received this letter, and this is the last part I'll go to before I seek a reaction. July the 11th letter addressed to me in my position as leader of the Alliance for Change, and this is what the letter said. Dear Mr. Hughes, order for submission of lists of candidates on nomination day. The Elections Commission does not have a formalized procedure that sets an order for the arrival of contesting parties to submit their list of candidates to contest general and regional elections. Let me just read this, because this is the most consequential election that we are going to have. And GCOM says the Guyana Elections Commission does not have a formalized procedure that sets out the order for the arrival of contesting parties to submit their list of candidates to contest the general and regional elections. That means they have no procedure for receiving lists from 20 parties. It goes on, second paragraph. Against this background, the Commission is confronted with a situation where 3 political parties positioned themselves outside of the compound of Humana-Yana, and 1 party submitted a photograph, that's the PPP, with attached text as evidence of its presence at the venue on the 7th of July 2025 as an indication of its position as the second in line to submit its list. So they're saying that the PPP on the 7th of July submitted a list, went there, and they took a picture. According to this party, their representatives departed when they recognized that GCOM had not yet taken possession of the venue. So the PPP people came, they say they came second, we have no evidence of it, no photograph, it happened there, and they say they left because GCOM wasn't present. The letter continues. Having communicated formally with the chair, this is the CEO, having spoken to Ms. Singh, and the commissioners on this matter, and in an attempt to give a semblance of orderly conduct, GCOM is saying they are making an attempt to give a semblance of orderly conduct on nomination day. The chief election officer has decided to allocate second place to the party that laid claim to that spot. I really have to read this slowly for you to really get this. Having communicated formally with the chairman and the commissioners on this matter, and in an attempt to give a semblance of orderly conduct on nomination day, the CEO has decided to allocate the second spot to the PPP, to the party that laid claim. So this is the Ghana Elections Commission saying, look, we don't have any formalized procedure, but some party came and took a photograph and said that they were there on July the 7th, and we are giving that party, the PPP, the second position. It doesn't say they're giving APNU number 1. Let me read the last paragraph so we can come back to that. In view of the foregoing, please be informed that you have been allocated the 3rd place to submit your list of candidates to contest the September 1st, 2025 general and regional elections. So GCOM is saying, we don't have a procedure. We know that you're out there. They say they've seen 3 parties out there. We know you're out there. The PPP come and show us a photograph. And because the PPP showed us a photograph, we have given them second position. Presumably APNU has first. And we've given you third. This is exactly the problem we anticipated, and it's a begging for trouble. What is the position? Let's park the AFC aside. What is the position of the other 17 parties who are in this election? They don't even know what number they're going to get. Today at the press conference, Ms. Amanza said that she hadn't even got an email from GCOM. So at this point, I want to invite Mr. Sharma, who was at that press conference, to share some thoughts on this.
Thank you, Comrade Leader, my president of candidates, my president in waiting. I must say you're a person with foresight, and because you had seen this coming for a very long time, from a very long distance, I must commend you for that. And that is exactly what played out there when you received that poorly worded letter. I would say poorly worded because they so many mistakes, you could say, in that worded letter. As you mentioned, it didn't even indicated or assume that APNU is number one. It's just like, oh, you're number three, they're number two. We don't know who's number one. And as I indicated at that press briefing in front of the Humaniana, is that the Representation with People Act ROPA in section 9 and 10 would lay out what is the function of the chief elections officer at that point in time when the list is being submitted. And so basically it's with a state that the chief election officer must gazette the location and time when he will be there to uplift the list. He's correct in that letter to saying there's no formal procedure. So at least he's correct at that point in time, because the act never speak about a formal procedure for uplifting a list or collecting a list, receiving a list. So it would be the intention of the framers that whoever should turn up in front of the chief election officer, the framers of the act, that is, whoever turn up before the chief election officer is the number one person. But we know from custom and practice that parties do camp out, or when they set up the barriers, parties arrive at the location, and they have GCOM usually have the employees looking out and indicating to the chief election officer, this party arrived first, and so that party will give preference. So I would say the parties, your party, our party, with the two other political parties, made the first jump. The PPP saw what was done and they want to get into the game. And so they came and take a selfie and sent it to the chief election officer. There's where the confusion started. So there's no formal process, but they can now formalize it to say, okay, they're not taking into account that you have on record a GCOM security officer making notes. They're not taking that. That is thrown out somehow out of this equation. And they now is only focusing, okay, you wrote them a letter, so you have interest. And they know the APNU was there first because people could go back to Facebook and look at the recordings. So they have that evidence. What was amusing is that the chief election officer was brave enough to write into that letter that he's using a selfie to award the second place to the PPP. Now, I did say that the ROPA speaks about the chief election officer communicating with party representative. Who are the party representatives that the chief election officer communicated with during this process? It is always the person appointed to be the representative and or deputy representative of the list. So the chief election officer should take that into consideration and say, when he saw the selfie, was the selfie had a deputy or deputy representative list or the representative list? Was it maybe the presidential candidate of that party was in the selfie? No, it was, the supporters, and they took a selfie. That is not enough. I even gave an analogy to a situation because, look, I was in that line in Diamond there at the community center, a very, very long line to collect the small cash grant, the one-off cash grant of 100,000, which it should have been much more, but nevertheless, it was 100,000. I'm very thankful. Many Guyanese are thankful. But which one of us in that line would allow an individual to come in front of them and say, here, I was here at this center early this morning when nobody was here. The place was empty, and I took out a selfie. And so this is evidence that I should be in front of the line when the paymasters arrive to pay out this cash grant. Which one of you will do that? But none of you will do that. But this learned chief election officer of GCOM is saying the selfie is his authority, his proof, his evidence. We in serious crisis, Mr. Nigel Hughes, my leader. We're in serious crisis. We are in serious crisis.
Let me just ask you this before I go to Kerry. What would you recommend the chief elections officer does know? You used to GCOM, I know in the financial sector part, but
yes, but I did indicated that in that particular area, they most likely will cordon off that area by tomorrow, latest. By tomorrow, they're going to prepare, send in furnitures and what's not, arranging the place. Security presence will be there, and security barriers and everything will be there. At that point in time, they will demarcate where the political party should stop at the 3 streets that you indicated. And you know, 1 street is dedicated for one party, the PPP. See, 1 street is dedicated for the APNU, and 1 street is dedicated for the 18 other parties. So basically, 2 parties don't really have to rush. Is that last street, which is dedicated for the 18 parties, will have to be maybe going to tonight, tomorrow morning early, and setting up camp. Because that will probably be the process that the chief election officer, the commission, will take after listening to our discourse out there this morning. That is the only right thing to do. I don't think he will proceed with that selfie scenario where he used the selfie justification for 2nd place. But now, it's only 4 hours is allocated for the collections of the list. Me speaking about each party submitting a maximum of 12 lists. That is the 10 geographical constituency and a top-up list. We have like about 20 political parties signal the intention. Maybe it wouldn't be 20, maybe it's reduced to 15. Nevertheless, the chief election officer with that crowd that will build up there probably will take about a half an hour or more to do one list, one submission, a complete submission. 4 hours is not enough unless they say the cutoff time is at 2 o'clock, at 14 hours. And so there's somebody who will stand there and say nobody else can join the line, we close off. Maybe that's a scenario. So here again, parties could be prevented from carrying out what the intention was to contest the election by simply saying at 2 we close off. Whoever is in the circle, whoever's out is out. They can't get into this race. This is a possibility. I don't know if you contemplated that, but this is a real possibility by setting that time. So whilst the 2 o'clock maybe the cutoff time, maybe GCOM probably will spend still 6, 7 o'clock in the night dealing with the list, but they have to cut off at some point in time. I don't know of the scenario, but definitely they're going to say 4 hours, 15 parties, and is not sufficient. So we have the issue now of these mammoth parties, the 2 largest parties, and you know they come with a bacchanal. They come with drums, they come gyrating, they even come with steel pan and trucks and so on. And you know the PVP is good for that. So you could imagine the incumbent president, and you know he liked to dancing down the young street there, doing some moonwalk and things like that. And I don't know if GCOM prepare for all of that show for him to enter. I don't know. So I don't know if GCOM calculated at 10 o'clock, the party will arrive or the party will be coming down the line, the Young Street line, at 12 o'clock. I don't know. GCOM didn't say allocated a time for a party.
Yeah.
So you know, you have to be at those junction, and who come first at those junction is basically is what they take into consideration. But only one party will come first at Young Street, and only one party will come first at High Street. As I said, the fight. So the AFC will have to go there, camp out. So let us know when you want us to go there and
We
camp
camped
out.
out already. We camped out. We have a presence. We had a presence there since Tuesday. We have a car. We have people that are there 24 hours a day, refreshments, etc. We're gonna have to move from that location tomorrow to a
Right.
position behind the barricade.
Correct.
But we can be camping out from behind the barricade from 6:30 tomorrow morning. So it's like you said, this is chaos. If you're gonna have 18 parties coming down one street, and the two major parties comes back again to what we complained about with the list. They said they were only giving the APNU and the PPP hard copies of the list, and here they've demonstrated one street for the PPP, one street for the APNU, and one street for 18 parties. And those 18 parties have to get to the CEO to lodge their list to make sure they get a good position. So, my fellow Guyanese, this is going to be problematic. But I want to change and turn to some happier topics, and that is Miss Kerry Gravesandi, who has been an outstanding woman in business. As you know, the Alliance for Change puts a great emphasis, as a matter of fact, on promoting women in business. We have said that we are going to establish a women's bank. We have said that we're going to make grants and small loans and loans for not just small loans, loans generally to women available, and that we will give them the financial support, because it's not just a question of lending somebody money and then they can't manage their affairs. So that is one of the center pieces of the Alliance for Change program. So with that, I want to ask Kerry, who has had a lot of experience. She won the inaugural Women in Business Award back in 2018, and then she co-founded the Women's Chamber for Commerce and Industry the following year. So, Kerry, tell us about women, business, and development of a country.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me, Mr. Hughes, and good evening, Mr. Sharma.
Please call me Nigel. And that applies to Jack Paul too.
Okay, I wanted to make a comment on the matter of GCOM, though. I really believe the letter received this morning is a clear indication of the unjust society that we live in, that we currently live in, and it's really concerning. And thank you for taking a stance on the matter. Now, as it relates to women in business, and specifically, we're speaking to our fellow Berbetians, I want to emphasize the need for data before we go into making any sorts of decisions as to what we should do and how we should do it. So we need the data first before we could go into that. Data will show us what areas women are participating in, particularly in the area. I know they're a lot into farming. Today I spoke to a young lady who owns a flower shop, and she was saying to me, what tends to happen is when one person see you pop up with a business initiative, they tend to think, oh, you're making it, let me go and replicate to do the same thing. So part of that data management also is to see how are we managing new businesses. Are they being registered? Are they being regulated in the ways that they need to be regulated? Part of getting that data as well is to ensure what resources they will need to go into any particular business that they have in mind or they're currently operating. So for instance, the area is particularly predominantly farming, and we want to be able to see, okay, you have this talent, you have the technique, let us give you the tangible resources that you need to get you to the level where you're turning over a profit, and then you could extend to foreign, regional, and international markets. Not just be able to send your produce to Mahaica or send it down to Border, or if you have stuff, I see sometimes even produce going to Puerto Rico. So we want to be able to give them the resources that will take them to cultivate, make a profit, and to export.
I thank you for that. You know that cost of living is the number one concern for all Guyanese, irrespective of their political affiliation. Cost of living is an issue. I want to ask Mr. Sharma, what would be some of your recommendations to tackle cost of living? And then I'll come to you, Kerry, on that.
Thank you for your question. And look, Kerry, if I may call you so, Miss Kerry.
Kerry's-
Yes. I had a brief discussion with the leader, and he said, look, well, the introduction of both of us was at the same time we heard what you said, and you're in business and the bank and everything. And so he said, Jaipal, you know, you spend a lot of time in finance, you're a county man. Tell me something, this program, what we can do. I hear you, and I had in mind to speak to the leader, and I said, I'm gonna need some, you know, I'm gonna need some information. And I'm happy that you indicated that we need to do some work and gather information. But nevertheless, looking at the kind of money that we have at our disposal, I look at it and we are looking like, as a grant, $1 million for a woman with a viable proposal. Now, I hope that we have a discussion and you would say if we need to set up an organization, or if your organization have the ability to do that kind of work in terms of going through the proposal, or we set up a body to do that. So we're looking like a grant of, you know, $1 million for a woman that have a initiative. Anything other than that, I mean above that, will be in the form of a loan, which a small interest will be added. It will go as a revolving fund, so it don't go back to the state, but it go back into the pool revolving. So a small loan to pay the cost for the operation of the fund, and the principal will go to revolve as a revolving. So we're looking at that. So I don't know, that is some good news for you, but that is what we could afford. Say we're not in office yet, but judging from the expenditure in relation to the 2025 budget and the expectation of additional FPSOs that will be coming on board, I took that in consideration. Also, this is all in relation to cost of living, mind you. So that is how we could alleviate cost of living. So we know cost of living is very high, so we're looking at these things. So we went further also to look at the situation with our brothers and sisters. We know we're dealing and we're speaking to the community of West Berbice, East Berbice Quarantine, an area which I worked, East Berbice Quarantine. I work as the finance, the PS Finance, which is the senior person in the unit of the region. So I know about the situation. I know about the problems they face there, and the farm in particular. And we know these are areas that people cultivate rice, and the government part, and through Gaisuku, cultivate sugar canes. And so, believe it or not, within the short time that I joined the AFC family, the leader didn't waste no time to say, Jaipal, you gotta tell me what we can do with Gaisuku. What we gonna do with Gaisuku? So I said, look, I spent the whole night last night up to 2 in the morning, and I was looking at what is the situation in Gaisuku. Gaisuku is performing dismally. Dismal. When I say dismal, poor, rotten poor. Now, when we came in, when I say we, I mean the AP and New David Granger government came in, where I was a minister and, you know, in finance. This is how exactly Gaisuku was operated. Very poor, dismal. And that was after 23 years of the PPP. So we came in office. Of course, I came from the Industrial Party as a minister within the Ministry of Finance. The senior minister was from the PNC, and the agriculture minister was from the AFC. So the agriculture minister came to the cabinet. And of course, I'm not a cabinet minister at that point in time, but our President David Granger would allow me to sit in the cabinet because, you know, he wants me to be familiarized myself and have an understanding of the workings of the cabinet. So I benefited from that exposure, and I could remember our Minister of Agriculture saying to cabinet that the CEO of Gaisuku, which was the previous chairman, turned CEO. Well, he turned CEO because it's more money, right? So he wasn't chairman any longer. He was CEO, and he's living overseas. He's not based in Guyana, and he spoke to the agriculturemen saying, within 1 week of we taking office, and we took office the 16th of May of 2015, said the entire Gaisuku will close. You hear me? I hope the people of Region 5 and 6 hear what I'm saying. I don't know if this is documented, if Farm Minister Holder have that. I could remember, I was in a meeting. I'm a Christian, I would not tell you lies. That's the important thing. So, if I say so, that is what was said. Maybe I could find newspaper articles that probably could back it up, but if the people want to take me to the task, I could find that article. And I could ask the Farm Minister, if he's still around, if he could also find any documentation, if he have any documentation to that effect. I'm telling you, this is what occurred. A government in May the 16th, 2015, 1 week after, the cabinet has been informed that the entire Gaisuku will close. You know, we were in shock as a cabinet, and they asked me for my opinion. But of course, not being a cabinet minister, it was just an opinion. And I said, I think it should be closed. I think it should be closed to prove the point to the people who really destroy Gaisuku. But we had a very caring president, and of course a prime minister, Moses Nagamutu, and Camarade Ramjatan, vice president, who was from that area, and said, no, Jaipal, you take a hardline approach, and we can't do that. We're going to subsidize them, and we start to give Gaisuku $1 billion every month. Every month, $1 billion. My thing was just prove the point that here, let it close. We will not actually close it, but in terms of a headline, the industry will close. But because we start to give them that $1 billion when they came the first week, it was never really highlighted that there was such a dire strain that the cooperation was so fully run for the 23 years. So nobody know the story. So I'm saying to you, when you ask me if we're going to keep it, I'm saying to you tonight, yes, the 4 estates, we have sufficient money to maintain the estates. The PPP pumped in $15 billion in 2023, $15 billion in 2024, and over $13 billion in 2025 budget. I'm saying here to the people of Region 5 and 6 particularly, 5 plus 5 have Blairmont, 5 and 6, that you shouldn't worry if the AFC government takes office under the stewardship of the excellent leader Niger Hughes, that we will keep the existed 4 estates and the workers. I could say this further to you, sir, and to the people. That is no other than the president of this country. And you know the president, a very famous individual, Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, who I think recently probably threaten the closure of the four estates. I see it as a threat because when he saw the dismal performance of the four estates, he said, you know, he will take severe actions. And he said, head will roll. I don't know what that means. I am saying he threatening to close down the estate. So he's saying there will be severe consequences and head will roll. Now, I'm speaking about the first crop of 2025, and they projected something like about 30,000 tons, I believe, and it was reported that they only made less than 30. Less than half of the 30, which is somewhere below 15,000 tons, and that is situation. Well, of course, they blame it on the rain and everything, like the song "Blame It on the Rain," and that is situation. But we're saying the AFC is saying, because I look at the numbers, I said, look, we could give a subsidies to Gaisuku to about the tune of 17 billion, and that is when we get into office after the elections of this year. So we're not going to wait to 2026 to give you that 17 billion. We're giving you it in the first budget, which will be an early budget, and the budget will be out by November, latest December, and 17 billion will be in that budget. In addition to those workers that was severed, I don't know how many was re-employed, but you did ask me to look at it, and we said, looking at the figure, if I have the number of persons that are still unemployed and those that are seeking employment and those are employed, I'm reporting to you that we could offer those severed workers that is still unemployed 500,000 one-off payment, and for those seeking employment, a reduced amount for those employed and still not earning enough, we could give them a one-off 250,000, and that is off the bat. We're not going to be waiting for 2026 for that. Also, you asked about the police force and the army, since the government, and you asked about the public servants. You know, I work in the Ministry of Public Service. That's the ministry that deals with the public servants. That's the ministry that have discussions with the unions, and particularly public service union, teachers union, and so on. So in that setting, I used to have such meeting when I was minister at the Ministry of Finance. Minister Jordan used to give me to speak with all the unions. So I can tell you, all the unions know me personally. They used to come with a wish list, and I used to actually not brush them off. I had unions sitting with me for 3 hours. So when they was allocating half an hour per union, I had the public service union sitting with me for 3 hours with the wish list, and I had Gau out there was keeping nice and say why we gotta wait so long, because the timetable had them within a half an hour of the GPSU. So it's not an issue. The public servants, I understand you'll be getting an 8%. It will be payable in your July salary. But what the AFC is proposing, I proposing to my leader, and I giving you advance notice that there will be a bonus payment. So we're not going to give no increase. The PVPC give you 8%. Okay, we leave it at that. But what you can get for Christmas is a bonus.
Well, I want to add to Jeff, just so that we are saying that people earning less than $250,000 or $250,000 and less become tax free. But we can come back to that.
Yes. So the public servants, teachers can expect a bonus of 100,000, and this is conservative. I don't know if you want to increase it, but I'm very conservative when it comes to numbers. I don't exaggerate the numbers like some other political parties. So it's like a pie in the sky. They just call numbers out like that. So 100,000, a bonus, tax-free, every single teacher and public servant. And for the police, I need to discuss it further, but we're looking at a tax-free bonus of 2 months' salary. 2 months' salary, not the 1 month that the PAP gave you since the inception, but 2 months' salary, tax-free bonus. And this is for the giant services, every single one, 2 months. But I have to discuss, right? I have to discuss because I think we have to look at, because some officers' salary is very huge, large.
I know.
So I want to cut it off at 500, right? So if you're below 500,000 and down, you have 2 months salary tax free. And so the senior officers, lesser among those that work in excess of 500,000. For the agriculture, in addition to agriculture, we have rice, a big thing, and we prepare to look at subsidies. If the world market price is not good, how we could subsidize you for this period, 2026, we'll deal with it differently. And so this is some of the short-term things that you asked me to look at. I couldn't go into too much details, but these are things that we could handle quickly within 2025. For first budget, this is it. Right? This is not everything, but this is what is important. This is what the people of Region 5 and 6 need to know. No estates will be closed. Even we going back to the severed workers to give them something.
I appreciate that. That's fantastic. I just want to give Kerry the last 5 minutes to say what you would do, particularly for women in business. But thank you. That was very comprehensive, Jaipal. Kerry, what would you do for women in business?
Well, I really like that question.
If you were the minister with that portfolio.
I really like that question. Before I answer that question on the cost of living, but going back to women in business, we need to start with the data so that we can be able to give tangible resources to women so that they'll be able to have the tangible, the fixed things that they need to get started with. If it is their farming, they need a piece of land to get the farming going. If it is they need a grant to get the farming going. If it is they need a grant to purchase product to put on their shelves. If they need financial management in terms of advisory as to how to do their books, those sorts of things. I really think a SME hub geared to women, in addition to the financial institution, it needs to be paired so that, because many of us sometimes, even when I started, you have this idea, but how do I translate it into my books? How do I handle the reporting? How do I, what bills do I prioritize? How do I manage my taxes? So those are things I think women in business in particular need assistance with. Back to the cost of living.
Go ahead.
Especially for female-led households, I want to draw back to Jamaica's initiative with their CARE. There's a CARE grant that is given every month for transportation and for food. So I think something like that is needed specifically for female-led households. I think that would help with the cost of living, particularly now.
Good, that's cost of living for women. I like that for particularly for female led households. I want to bring you down to a specific set of cases. I know that I see these women that come from Anse Grove and up the East Coast every day coming down and they sell fresh fruit and vegetables in Georgetown. And then, of course, at the end of the day, they still have stock. They either have to sell it at a reduced price or they have to dump it. And one of the proposals the Alliance for Change has is to put cold storage in the major markets in the country and make cheap cold storage available to those vendors so that you extend the life of their fresh produce. So if they bring it down, they don't have to dump it at the end of the day or at the end of 2 days. It will add time to the product. Because I remember when the ladies at in Stabrook Market, the ones who are struggling and selling on the side of the street when the city council came to remove them, they literally have to dump that produce, which means their capital goes down. And one lady said to me, Mr. Hughes, sometimes I don't have money to pay to get home. And that really shocked me. So I think cold storage for these vendors, you come, you pay whatever it is, $200 or whatever the figure is. We look and work out what is the competitive rate, and you leave your goods in there. You come back next morning. You have whatever it's 2 or 3 more days life out of produce that you would bring down. I just want to touch briefly on there's a difference between food availability and access to food. In Guyana, there's a lot of food available, i.e. at the place where it's planted, but people can't access it because they don't have the money. So one of the proposals we have is to subsidize the cost of transportation from food from where it is produced to the actual marketplace, and that should reduce the prices of fruits and vegetables in Guyana. There are lots of other things that we want to talk about. Tonight, I think, has been absolutely exceptional. And later in this week, I want to have both of you back, either individually, to talk about economic development, women in business and development, because I want people to understand, first of all, the issues. It's the financial literacy, because you might not understand why it is that you never seen your way. And so we need to have this discussion so people understand what's going on and how these resources that we have can be used to support the people, because at the end of the day, this benefit has to come to the people. It can't be going to a very small part of the population, but more importantly, if you're burying money into infrastructure, and the infrastructure is not benefiting the people or only benefiting a certain amount of people, then you have a problem. And if you're not addressing the real source for the cost of living going up, which is the production of food and agriculture, we have an issue. But I like the fact that we have just touched the surface. Jaipal, that was a fantastic job. Kerry, really, really good. I'm sorry we're out of time. We probably needed 2 hours. But this has been a very, very good show. To the good people of Berbice, we say thank you. And I ask Kerry first, any closing thoughts, and then Jaipal.
I look forward to continuing this conversation, because there are lots of other areas that I would really like to get into as well. Some other initiatives I'd like to discuss and to share. But this, as you said, is a really good starting point, and I look forward to the next time.
Thank you. Jaipal?
Yes, thank you. To the people of Region 5 and 6, I am looking forward to being in person with you, speaking with you, taking questions from you. But let me just leave this with you to tell you exactly how poor Guy Sook's performance is. And in terms of cost of production for 1 pound of sugar is $1.31 US. And the world market price for sugar is only 35 cents. Now, if you work that out, that Gaisuku is selling at a loss at 96 US cents. That is it. And so knowing these facts, I'm very appreciative that our leader would ask me such a question, and I said, yes, we will save the estates. We're not going to close no estates. We're going to work with them, better management. I'm looking at having discussion with GAU themselves to see if we can have an arrangement for them to manage the estates themselves. I'm speaking about the union themselves. There's other expertise in the union.
I thank you very much, both of you, and to the citizens of Region 5 and Region 6, West and East Berbice, and those of you who've joined us online. We will continue the fight for free and fair elections, and we will continue to give you the best option come September 1st to vote for the Alliance for Change. Remember, the Alliance for Change is running by itself in this election. We are running by itself. It's the key, like we did in 2006 and like we did in 2011, because we believe that the breadth of opportunities and the ideas that we have will skyrocket the development of this country forward. So good night, and thank you very much.
All right. Tell them, well, it's it's time for a change and we need it today. Nigel at the front and leading the way. This is the year that better must come with the AFC. We go win hands down. Real money start thief when the eyes start drill. Corruption the inside the cup still. Guyana need change and a man with the will. The choice is clear, it's the man Nigel. Two power ship and enough blackout still. Cost of living so high and you can't pay bill. You feel them is for you, don't just swallow that pill. Vote a man for the people, the man Nigel. Put up your hand if you love Nigel. Better must come with the man Nigel. A man with the plan, a man with the skill. A man for the people, the man Nigel. Check this, too much thieving and plenty slackness. You talk for your rights and you get blacklist. They only act like the characters and actress. Choose a clean background and stay less practice. Put up your hand if you love Nigel, you. Better must come BFC and Nigel, you. Respected, educated, the man with the skill. The man for the people, the man Nigel. Nigel use a man with integrity. Nigel, look out for everybody. Nigel, not just friends and family. Better must come with the AFC.